It's a lot easier. Otherwise, I also did put up a website on our Teams page where you can use this online app to make your to do this part of the our notes. But anyway, for now, if you want, just follow along with your calculator, so because that's what you're going to be using anyway for your exams. So you do need to remember and revise how to do this. All right, so we've been learning about univariate data, okay, and we remember one variable for univariate. You're looking at like box plot, histograms. We did learned a couple of new things like the 68, 95, 99.7 rule with bell-shaped curves and that kind of stuff. Okay, now we're going to move on to bivariate data. Okay, and today's just this part's just going to be a little bit of a recap on it. Okay, on how to work with your bivariate data. Questions. Okay, so some things that you do need to remember with bivariate data is remember this bad boy here, the least squares regression line. Zach, do you remember what the least squares regression line is? Yep, so something to do with the a plus bx. Okay. What else? Does anyone else remember? What is the least squares regression line? Let's go with Rocco. Anything you remember about the least squares regression line? What is it? Nothing at all? It's a line. Okay, there's definitely that to it. All right, that's fine. Zaid, do you remember anything about the least squares regression? Anyone else? No? Ryan, I know I didn't teach you in semester 1, but do you remember anything you learned back from least squares regressions? All right, all good. So your least squares regression line, okay, remember when it comes to bivariate, you're working with X and Y tables. Yeah, so here is a X and Y table, and you'll have a bunch of dots or what we call a scatter plot. Okay, and the least squares regression line is a line, okay, that goes through the data and it represents the data, okay, and it helps you to predict data, okay, or helps you to predict certain variables depending on obviously what the where the scatter plot is located. But the least squares regression line, okay, is going to be something that we do use a lot in bivariate data. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention for this. And as Zach did mention, this y equals a plus bx rule is going to be used for this. Actually, before I go ahead, does anyone remember what do each of these letters represent? Y equals a plus bx. A is the, what's that? Ooh, not quite. The other one's the slope. The other letter. B is the slope. Okay, so B is the slope.
A is the intercept.
Good. Okay, slope or gradient. And then A is the y-intercept. Okay, y-intercept. You probably remember, I think maybe back in like year 9, y equals, year 10, sorry, mx plus c. It's the same thing. Okay, it's just slightly different letters. But in year 11 and year 12, we did use a plus bx. And does anyone remember what the x and y represent? Okay, what does the letter x represent? Let's go with Fahad. What does x and y represent? Yeah, so you've got the two sides of the graph, or the x-axis and y-axis. I'm thinking more in terms of the variables. Okay, there's two types of variables that we use, the explanatory variable and the, anyone remember what the other one is? Kaya, put your hand up. No, okay. EV and the RV, remember that? What does each one represent? X is the explanatory variable, and Y is the response variable. Okay, we'll go back in the next few parts of this topic and recap on that, yeah? But EV and RV. So that's what this formula is going to represent, okay? Y equals a plus bx. Y is the response. A is the y-intercept. B is your slope or your gradient. And then X is your explanatory variable. All right, let's do a quick recap on our calculators. The instructions are here, so you can refer back to it, but let's just go straight into the actual question, okay? So then I'll get you guys to do this in your own calculators. You need to be able to do this on your own skill. All right, so here's an example. An apply, install, learns that the number of air cons they're selling each week is predicted by the average daily maximum temp in each week. Okay, so there's your two variables already. Number of air cons sold and then average daily max temp. Okay, those are your two variables for this. The data is used to support this is given below. All right, so here you've got the temperature and it determines how many air cons will be sold. So obviously maybe the higher the temperature, the more air cons you'll be selling. All right, and remember your X variable is your EV. Oh, you can't see that, can you? EV, and then your Y variable is your RV, response variable. And remember, does anyone remember the statement that your EV determines the output of your RV? Okay, so remember that. Your RV doesn't determine the EV, the EV determines the RV. Okay? Right, so there's your data. We need to find the least squares regression that predicts the aircon sales. Okay, round your intercept and slope to 3 sig figs. All right, there's another thing we need to remember, significant figures. 3 important numbers. All right, so what I'll get you to do is follow along with me. I've already done it on my calculator here. But what I would like you to do, okay, is you're going to go to new document and you're going to add list and spreadsheets, okay? Remember, when we put numbers in our calculator, you need to make sure you label the columns. So put your values in. So here it's going to be your EV. I'm going to write temp, MP, and then put all your values for temperature in the temp column. And then here we'll go aircon. You can call it whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. And then put all your values for the air conditioner in your calculator. Okay? Do that for me, please. Document. All right. If you haven't got your calculator, I did put up this website here that you can use. It's pretty straightforward. Just put your numbers in, and it should give you the same thing. Okay? But let's start with this. Put your variables in. So I'll put it here so you can see it. There's your variables. And we're going to find the equation for the least squares regression line. All right. Give you guys a second to do that. Did you find the website? Sorry? You've done this, haven't you? Yeah. Bring your diary. All right, let's go ahead and find the formula for this, okay? The instructions are there, but you can just follow me here. So to find the formula for your least squares regression line, you're going to go menu. Number 4, so statistics, stat calc, and then number 4, A plus BX. Be mindful of what your EV and RV is. Your questions here, it does tell you, but in the exam or in the SACs, remember, it might not tell you what the EV or the RV is. So you got to think which one determines the other. The EV, the X variable, will determine the RV. So you got to make sure in your X list, you put your EV. So the temperature will determine the aircon sales. So make sure you put temp on the X and then aircon on the Y. And then once you've done that, you'll get these variables here, these numbers. Oops. Okay, and what we're focusing on is these two. Okay, so first question. It's asking us to predict. Oops. Okay, we're being asked to predict the, find the formula for the least squares regression line. Going back to here, you're looking for two things, yeah, A and B. And remember the formula was A plus BX. Okay, so if you go down here, let's write this down. The formula is Y equals A plus BX. And the only thing you're changing here is whatever A and whatever B is. So looking at a calculator, there's my values for A and B. So the formula should be Y equals, A is negative 37 point, actually, be mindful as well, 3 significant figures, don't forget that. So if you want to round 37.56 to significant 3 sig figs, what's it going to be, guys? 3 important numbers. What would it be? I'm going to ask Natasha, can you round 37.565 to 3 significant figures? Good. Negative 37. 0.6. Okay, so 3 important numbers would be the 3, the 7, and then that 5. Okay, you've got to change it to a 6 because the 6 will adjust that. Plus, and then B, according to this, is 1.8729. So let's ask, let's see, Kyla, sorry, I got you guys confused. Kyla, can you give me this into 3 sig figs? B. Good, just 1.87. X. Sorry, Kyla. All right, there's my formula. Now, there's one more thing that I would believe assessors would want you to do when you do these sort of questions. What you do need to change, one more thing, is whatever the EV and the RV is to the actual variable. So let's just do that. Look at the EV and the RV. There it is there. So just change X and Y to whatever it says there. So it's going to be aircon sales is equal to negative 37.6 plus 1.87 times the temp. So just write temperature. And that's it. Okay, make sure you write your formula in that full form. Don't just leave it as, and I believe when I was marking these in semester 1, that if you just left your formula like this, technically you wouldn't get the full mark for it. Okay, you got to make sure you change it according to the variables. Okay, so that's part 1, or part A. Part B, predict the number of aircons sold if the average max daily temp is 27. Round your answer to the nearest whole number, okay? So for part B, you're just going to use your formula to figure out how many aircons you'd be selling if the temp was 27. Okay, and round it to the nearest whole number. So that means your formula is going to be aircon is equal to negative 37.6 plus 1.87 multiplied by the temperature of 27. Okay, let's work that out. Negative 37.61 plus 1.87 times 27. Okay, 12.88. Obviously, you can't sell 0.8 of an aircon, so you do need to round it to 13 aircons. Okay, and that's it. Okay, not too hard. I think the next question is more or less the same thing, so we won't go through it. But everyone understand that? So the main thing you need to remember how to do here is how do you put your data in a calculator to get your least squares regression line. And to do your least squares regression line, let me do this here real quick. Okay, if you forgot how to do that, put your data in, make sure you know what EV and RV is. Menu, number 4, number 1, number 4 again. Put your EV here. So we did temp and your RV was aircon. Okay, and remember A is your y-intercept or your y-intercept, and then B is your slope or your gradient. And your formula has to look like in this form, okay, or in this form. All right, cool. And then you'll be making predictions. Pretty straightforward. If you're using the online version, all you have to do here is put your values in. Okay, so whatever they are, split them with commas. So you put your X values, put your Y values, and put it, calculate it, and then it should give you A and B here. Okay, so you can use your the online version if you don't have your calculator on you. Cool. All right, that's it.